A year ago, I mused about the industry transitioning away from the boomer-bust period that led to the heights we sit at now. I think it was a pretty spot-on assessment. Tech advancements have slowed to a crawl, and the majority of gamers are playing relatively older games using relatively older hardware or their phones, so AAA doesn't get to dangle the next-gen carrot like they used to, and instead has to play the quality game with everyone else. But back then, I was still playing it kinda safe, and I wasn't brave enough to wager a guess out loud as to where we might end up beyond the horizon. Figured after over 365 days I'd have a clearer idea as to what the future of gaming might look like. Now I'm thinking I was going about it the wrong way, and the future of gaming is done as a concept. Here and now is where we talk about the present of gaming. If you imagine the game industry as an airplane, then it left the tarmac somewhere in the 70s. Fell a little, gained more elevation in the 80s, done a nosedive, slowly corrected itself to make it to the 90s, and then it fired off, piercing the mainstream heavens in the 2000s and aiming to spit in God's eye. We were operating on the Heisenberg principle. Do you want to stop and figure out where we are, or do you want to hear another sonic boom? We were moving so fast the conversation was only ever about the future of gaming. The present of gaming would be the history of gaming by this time next year, so don't even bother. Well, the dramatic climb, fueled by tech and culture, is over. We're still sitting high in the sky, but at a more modest angle. Might even hit God in the big toe if we're lucky. Unbuckle your seatbelt. You are now free to roam about the cabin. But the near 2 decades of high-octane flying has done a number on our perception and social skills. Take me, for instance, born in '95, my generation's only known growth. We're liable to be the first ones to scream that the ride is over at first mention of things slowing down. We've been serving in the console wars so long it's gone cold, and Phil Spencer asking for console peace looks like console surrender. Check in on your Xbox friends. They just found out their favorite uncle is a console commie. Meanwhile, the older generation of gamers makes weird grumble noises as they tell us how a concurrent player count of 30,000 players doesn't mean a game is dead. Back in their day, they used server hosting dinosaurs or something to play Quake with 4 people. And the numbers keep coming through to support the idea that Gen Z is console agnostic, not making the thing they game on a part of their personality. They just want to play any game with any friend regardless of what they own. The future of gaming is no longer a talking point, and we have multiple, oftentimes conflicting, ideas of what gaming is. And these are just a few of the topics dividing us ideologically. At risk of sounding pretentious, I consider this moment we're transitioning through to be an age of enlightenment of sorts. It's a time where we question everything we know, especially our best practices. Is what we consider to be the norm actually true? Or was it just limited data? Short-term understandings posing as tradition, or a placeholder to keep the plane from falling apart as we continued skyrocketing? It's not just gamers, even people in power are speaking out against old habits that need to die. More importantly, people with influence are taking action. Manor CEO Tim Bender has recently fired off against criticism from other CEOs that he isn't pushing his game and development team to its fullest potential. What are they basing that on? Player numbers of a single-player game? And content updates of a game that is in early access. For a little zoomed-out perspective, Manor Lords came out April of this year and sold over 2 million copies in under 3 weeks. Yet the problem is Tim Bender's not squeezing as much value as he could. Tim believes that is a toxic draconian mindset that needs to be left behind. Go big or go home was the attitude that grew the industry, yes. Take Blizzard for example, throwing out hit after hit until they were unable to keep up with their own growth and standards. Going home and operating on a modest, stable level sounds more appealing now to the aging industry. Maybe the music doesn't have to be so loud, and we still do drugs, but they're vitamin gummies. Now is when we'll have to separate ourselves from taboo and superstitions and find out how we want to operate, business-wise and culturally. Do we really want to have the same boring, bland accessibility debate every time a game has yellow paint, when we could instead reframe it to critique and analyze the different ways a game preserves a state of flow? In spite of multiple releases and 10 years, the From Software difficulty debate has gotten nowhere. I fondly look back on Total Biscuit's notorious diatribe, have single-player FPS gone backwards, as a response to the industry foregoing the traditional boomer shooters for the more popular modern military shooters. Hopefully anyone who felt that way in 2011 feels better served in 2024. We have more first-person shooters than I know what to do with. Boomer, Modern military, military sim, battle royale, extraction shooters. Same thing goes for the roguelike genre. What is and isn't one? Nerds used to go to summits to try and classify roguelikes, and now those elements are practically everywhere. We don't have to fight over which way to go, because the industry might leave a particular style of game behind. One style of game's existence no longer means another's extinction. We get to find out what is a genre, what is a trend, and what's been overdone. Do we even like MOBAs in 2024, or do people just like League of Legends and Dota? Personally, what I am most and least excited to talk about is ethics. I get to put my OSHA training to good use, but that requires talking to people. People don't talk to each other nowadays, they shout at one another. The same way we used to make fun of old people yelling at the television is how we engage with our media. And the idiot you're totally owning in the comments section might not even be real, if you believe in the dead internet theory that the majority of activity on the web is from bots. But I digress. People have reactions that I'm not suited to deal with. If they feel attacked, I have to convince them first that it's safe before they hear me out. If they don't understand, I have to start all over and find a simpler metaphor, even though I think the last one was a lot cooler. At times it felt like I was throwing softballs with videos that highlight cartoonishly bad business. So I was excited to try out a few that aren't so cut and dry that might encourage a little introspection. Business, while government regulated, is a relationship between buyer and seller after all. Sometimes, like in the case of EA's Star Wars Battlefront pay-to-win features, the seller is completely out of line and should be elbow dropped through a steel cage. Other times, the buyers come off as a bit too entitled or eager to play victim. Like when people found out Factorio never goes on sale despite their transparency and good reasoning. My favorite things to write about are sticky situations with no clear-cut hero or villain. I've tested a few topics in that regard recently, and it feels like I'm getting shouted at from two opposite ends that refuse to believe the other side even exists. Everyone believes they're the center of morality, but if you're only ever yelling at one group of people, you might not be standing in the middle. I'd like to remind gamers of all creed that outside of the gaming sphere, there is an entire world of people who believe that your passion, the thing you love, is a giant waste of time. You want those people and fossilized legislators making decisions for you. It wasn't too long ago that video games as a whole were seen as immoral and demonic. Video games cause violence, think of the children, was the focus of the Family Entertainment Protection Act. At which point should the focus be think of how you parent? But not in an all or nothing, one person gets all the blame kind of way. Nuance, that's where we're currently at. For years we said we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Look around you, we're on that freaky bridge. I am no longer in a position to comfortably muse on the future from afar. It's time to roll up my sleeves, tighten the tie, and have one more sip of the good stuff because, for my part, I believe in being the change I want to see. So I'm gonna have to learn how to talk to people instead of at them or over them. So, how was your day?
This video is brought to you by Union of Gnomes, the deck-building roguelike where you stack together groups of bearded men to bring down your favorite fairy tale characters. The treacherous Snow White has used her enchanting voice to enslave your kind, and it's up to you to lead the gnome uprising. Free your fellow height-impaired comrades, gain new cards and playable heroes as they join your ranks, and work towards putting a stop to her oppressive rule. See the end of the gnome oppression in the story mode, or try to survive the infinite gameplay of Never-Ending Nightmare. It's up to you to build a deck with perfect game-breaking synergy as what I assume is a group of non-speaking rappers. You know, because in Union of Gnomes, the G is silent. A demo is available right now, and Union of Gnomes hits early access on July 18th, so head on over to the Steam page and start your uprising today. Boo all you want.